I was hit in the head by a car. The doctor said I would lose my memory. I joked with the girl sitting by my hospital bed. Excuse me, who are you? She hesitated for a moment and then said, we're just normal friends. Like hell we are. You're this beautiful. I can tell you're my future wife just by looking at you. After I swore. Without another word, I got down on one knee and said, hey beautiful, give me a ticket into your life. I opened my eyes. It took a long time for my vision to focus. On the stark white ceiling, my head throbbed with a dull, persistent pain, accompanied by a strong sense of dizziness. You're awake? How are you feeling? A figure in a white coat appeared in my vision. The voice sounded like it was coming through a filter. I moved my lips. My throat was too dry to make a sound. He checked my pupils. Beside him, a nurse was writing something down, a rather severe concussion. The CT scan shows minor hemorrhaging, putting pressure on the hippocampus. The doctor's words floated into my ears intermittently. Partial memory loss may occur later on, also known as amnesia. The extent is hard to say. We'll need to monitor it. Amnesia? Something so dramatic? I tried to force a smile, but I found my facial muscles were very stiff. My eyes moved with difficulty. They stopped on the other side of the hospital bed. A girl was sitting there. The light from the window outlined the contours of her profile. Her soft hair fell beside her ear. Her eyes were very big. They were now filled with visible worry and exhaustion. The rims of her eyes were slightly red. She must have been crying. She was very quiet, but her tightly clenched fists on her knees betrayed her tension. So beautiful. These two words unconsciously appeared in my mind. A strong and indescribable feeling. A sense of familiarity and closeness washed over me, even faster than the headache. I licked my dry, chapped lips. In a hoarse voice, I almost joked instinctively. Doctor, then I have to ask who this fairy sitting by my bed is. Who might she be? The girl suddenly raised her head to look at me. Her gaze was as complex as a tangled mess of silk. There was concern, there was worry, there was some kind of deep pain, and also a hint of avoidance that I couldn't understand. She hesitated for a moment. Her voice was very soft, but it was like a small nail hammered into my heart. We're just normal friends. Like hell we are. The words practically flew out of my mouth, even though my mind was a mess. Some instincts remained terrifyingly intact, seeing how much she clearly cared, yet she insisted on drawing a line. A strong impulse took over me. A girl as cute as her. No matter how I looked at it, she had to have an unusual relationship with me. I don't know where I got the strength and impulsiveness. I suddenly threw off the blanket, enduring the intense dizziness and the pain in my arm. Without another word, I rolled out of bed. I got down on one knee on the cold floor. The movement was so forceful that it made the IV stand clatter. I took her slightly trembling hand that was resting on her knee. I looked up into her momentarily astonished eyes, which widened even more. Hey, beautiful. I heard myself speaking in a slightly roguish, yet incredibly serious tone. Who are you kidding? You're this beautiful. I can tell you're my future wife just by looking at you. Give me a ticket into your life. Her face flushed red at a speed visible to the naked eye. Her fingers in my hand were stiff like small twigs. Her eyes immediately glazed over with a thicker layer of moisture. She acted as if she'd been burned. Hurriedly pulling her hand back, she stood up abruptly. The chair legs scraped across the floor, making a piercing sound. Ya Ling Feng, what nonsense are you talking about? You should get some rest. Her voice had a barely perceptible tremor. Her tone was flustered and stiff. The doctor said you need to recuperate. I'll go get a nurse to check on you. She practically fled for her life. Her messy footsteps rushed out of the hospital room, leaving only a hurried silhouette and a little, faint fragrance that made my heart ache. I held my buzzing head. The pain was even more intense. I knelt there, dazed, staring at the empty doorway. Wow, even the way she runs away is beautiful. So beautiful. Truly beautiful. Haha. The doctor beside me perplexedly touched my head and said, is there a problem with his IQ? Why does he keep smiling like a fool? The smell of the hospital suffocated me. A nurse came to check on me again. She gave a long list of instructions, including the possibility of confusion and amnesia. I listened distractedly. My mind was filled with the image of that girl's fleeing back, and the look in her red-rimmed eyes as she said we were just normal friends. My phone was shattered in the accident. The nurse said, they're trying to fix it, but hope is slim. I was like a drifting bottle thrown into a strange sea, unable to find any coordinates. In the afternoon, I couldn't stay any longer. My future wife ran away. What was I still doing here? During the nurse's shift change, I pulled the IV needle from the back of my hand. I changed back into my clothes, stained with blood and dust. My clothes were crumpled. I quietly snuck out of the hospital, standing on the busy street. The sunlight was a bit dazzling. Where should I go? I don't know where my home is. I'm not even sure if I have a home in this city. That girl, what's her name? I didn't even get a chance to ask. My mind was blank, but my feet seemed to have a mind of their own. I wandered aimlessly. I walked through several streets and turned into an old residential area. The buildings here looked quite old. The walls were peeling and mottled, but it was quite clean. I stopped in front of Unit 3 of one of the buildings. A strange feeling pulled me in. This is the place. It felt like I had been walking for a very, very long time. Ah, just to come back here, just as I was staring blankly at the unit entrance, trying to dig through my empty mind to find some clue. A barrage of loud cursing, and the sound of loud banging on a door came from upstairs. Luo Xin ran. "You brat, open the door for your old man. I know you're in there hiding from me, aren't you? Think you've grown wings, huh?" A hoarse, greasy man's voice, accompanied by the sound of heavy banging on a metal door. It made my heart pound. Luo Xin ran. My heart trembled. It was almost an unconscious confirmation. That's her name. Luo Xin ran. It's beautiful. Haha. But right now, this name was being called out in such a filthy way. It ignited a groundless flame of anger in my heart. The sound of the banging was like a hammer, pounding against my temples. The headache suddenly intensified. I ran a few steps up the stairs. I saw a sloppily dressed man, reeking of alcohol. He had an obese figure. He was kicking and pounding on the door of room 402, cursing with spittle flying everywhere. "Open the door, give me the money. Did your old man raise you for nothing? You useless daughter." That face, that unreasonable, tyrannical aura. It made me feel a visceral disgust and anger. It was terrifyingly familiar, especially when I heard the word useless. My eyes stung for some unknown reason. He had no right to call Luo Xinran that. "What are you doing?" I heard myself yell angrily. My voice was raspy, but it carried an anger that even I didn't expect. The old scoundrel heard the voice and turned around. The moment he saw me, a flash appeared in his cloudy eyes, a nauseating excitement and joy, like a hungry dog seeing a bone. "Oh my good son-in-law, you're finally here." He practically lunged at me, grabbing my arm tightly. His strength was surprisingly great. The foul smell of cigarettes mixed with alcohol hit my face. Quick, talk some sense into that brat Shinran. She won't even acknowledge her own father anymore. You're a man with a future. Quick, give your dad some money. Your dad's been tight on cash these past few days. Help me out a little." Son-in-law. Dad. These forms of address were like a cold needle, stabbing deep into my mind, causing a tearing pain. I let out a groan. I clutched my head. My vision went black. A few hazy, fragmented images flashed by. The same filthy face, the same outstretched hand, the same entanglement, nausea, anger, helplessness. The pain was so intense I had to double over. My breathing became ragged. That old scoundrel took this opportunity. His other hand quickly reached into my jacket pocket and took out my wallet. He opened it skillfully, grabbed all the cash inside, and stuffed it into his own pocket. Then he carelessly tossed the empty wallet at me. "Good son-in-law. I knew you were a filial son. Dad will come visit you again next time." He grinned smugly, patting his bulging pocket. He stopped banging on the door, humming a vulgar tune. He staggered downstairs. I collapsed onto the cold steps, leaning against the wall, panting heavily. Cold sweat soaked my back. The headache had subsided a little, but the feeling of nausea and anger didn't fade. My wallet lay on the ground. A few bank cards and documents had fallen out. She and I, what is our relationship really? I don't know how long I sat there, until it gradually got dark. The light in the hallway was broken. It was pitch black. I struggled to my feet. I stuffed the scattered items back into my wallet and staggered downstairs. I didn't know where I could go. It was just an instinct not to go too far from this place. That girl, Luo Xinran, will she come back? I wandered through the complex like a ghost. Finally, I squatted under a dim streetlight, relying on that little bit of light. I dazedly watched some ants on the ground. They were struggling to carry a cookie crumb that someone had dropped. My mind was both empty and heavy, filled with fragments that couldn't be pieced together. Ye Ling Feng, a sobbing call, both hurried and angry. It woke me from my daze. I looked up. Luo Xinran was standing not far away, panting heavily. Her face was pale. Her eyes were full of red blood vessels, as if she had run a very long way. "Don't let her cry. Don't let Luo Xinran cry." This sentence suddenly appeared in my mind. She saw me foolishly sitting here counting ants. First, she let out a sigh of relief. Immediately after, anger flared on her cheeks. She rushed over. Her voice was also trembling. "Are you crazy? How could you run out of the hospital? The doctor said you could be in danger at any moment." I got the call and almost went crazy with worry. "Do you know how many places I've looked?" She was clearly furious, but her eye sockets were red. She was trying hard to hold back her tears. A place in my heart suddenly softened, and then it ached. I looked up at her and mumbled softly, "The hospital smells bad. My head hurts. If your head hurts, you should be in the hospital even more." Her voice was firm. She reached out to pull me. "Come back with me right now. I'm not going back." I suddenly pulled my hand back, like a child throwing a tantrum. "You can beat me to death, but I'm not going back. That place makes me uncomfortable." She stomped her foot angrily and said, "Why are you being so disobedient?" Just then, my gaze fell on the set of keys that had slipped out of her pocket in her agitation and were now held in her hand. In a flash, I don't know where I got the agility, I suddenly stood up and snatched that set of keys. "What are you doing? Give them back to me." She was shocked and tried to snatch them back. I used my height advantage to hold the keys up. A glance revealed a small keychain, a plush sunflower hanging from it. An indescribable sense of familiarity welled up inside me. I was sure I knew Luo Xinran, and it wasn't a normal relationship either. I ignored her shouts and attempts to grab them back. I turned and rushed into the unit entrance, suppressing my dizziness. I took the stairs 2 at a time, rushing up, relying on muscle memory. I stopped precisely in front of a door. I unlocked it, slipped inside, and immediately slammed the door shut. Ye Ling Feng, open the door, come out! She pounded on the door from outside. Her voice was filled with sobs and anger. I leaned my back against the door. My heart was pounding like a drum. The headache started acting up again from running so fast. I looked around. This is a very small living room, but it's extremely neat and clean. The layout is very cozy. My brain figured it out faster than I expected, where everything should be placed. A beige sofa, warm-colored curtains, a small green plant on the table. He picked it. I rested my head in my hands. My mind was a mess, but I confirmed that I know Luo Xinran. The air had a light, fresh scent, just like the one on her. It immediately made me feel much more at ease. You're not going to open the door, are you? I'm calling the police, she yelled from outside the door. I steadied my breathing. The next second, relying on body memory, I unconsciously crawled straight under the dining table in the living room. Strange, why would I want to crawl under a table? And why am I so proficient at it? I shivered as I rubbed my chin and thought. The table isn't big. It's a bit tight for me to curl up in here, but it's just enough to hide me. Go ahead, call the police, I shouted in a muffled voice from under the table. It's fine if the police come and take me away. Anyway, I'm not going back to the hospital, and I'm not going out. I'm staying here. It was quiet outside the door for a moment, then I heard a key being inserted into the lock. She has a spare key. The door opened. Her footsteps entered. She stopped beside the dining table. I could see her jean-clad legs and her white canvas shoes. She squatted down and lifted a corner of the tablecloth, looking at me huddled inside. Her expression was incredibly complex. Anger, helplessness, worry, exhaustion, and also a hint of emotion that I might have mistaken. Come out, she said. Her tone had softened a bit, but there was still a hint of firmness. I'm not coming out. I hugged my knees tightly, keeping my head down. Unless you agree to let me stay, I just have nowhere to go. My phone is broken. I don't know anyone. My head hurts so much. Don't kick me out, and don't take me to the hospital. I'm begging you. I heard her take a very soft breath, as if she was utterly helpless. A long silence, only the sound of our breathing, intertwined in the small, quiet room. Finally, I heard her extremely soft sigh, almost inaudible. Okay. Her voice was full of fatigue. It made my heart feel a little uncomfortable. Come out. You can stay temporarily. But you have to let me look at your injury. If it doesn't look good, you have to go back to the hospital immediately. My heart suddenly felt light. An indescribable joy washed over me, chasing away the headache and anxiety. I was like a big dog that had been pardoned. I clumsily crawled out from under the table. My hair was still a little dusty. I looked up and gave her what was probably a very silly smile. Thank you. Luo Xinran. It was the first time I called her name. A strange sweetness lingered on the tip of my tongue. She froze for a moment. She turned her face away, not looking at me, but the rims of her ears quietly turned red. She turned to get the first aid kit. Her tone was still stiff. I'm only letting you stay temporarily. Once you're a little better, and remember something, you have to leave. I know she's tough on the outside, soft on the inside. Just like I know we absolutely cannot be just normal friends. Don't think I didn't see it? Her house is full of men's belongings, although she gave a long explanation for it. But the majestic size of the underwear in the closet, I can tell it's mine just by looking at it. The evidence of our not-so-normal relationship just became exponentially stronger. And so, my temporary life as a freeloader began. Luo Xinran made a bed on the sofa. She insisted on sleeping on the sofa, while I slept on the bed, but I used the flimsy excuse that my injured head needed a soft environment, and the legitimate reason that she had to work tomorrow and needed a good rest to refute her. The next morning, Luo Xinran repeatedly reminded me to be good and rest at home and not to go anywhere. There's food in the fridge. If you're thirsty, boil some water. Her serious expression was like she was instructing a large child who couldn't take care of himself. I nodded my head like a bobblehead, acting extremely obedient. The moment the door closed, the obedient look on my face instantly vanished. Stay at home? No way. My empty brain and my heart that constantly beat for her were both screaming madly for answers. The more she avoided it, the more I wanted to know what exactly happened between us. That old scoundrel, those inexplicably familiar feelings, were all like hooks scratching at my heart. I peeked through the peephole and confirmed she was far away. Instantly, like a husky just let out of its cage, wearing yesterday's unwashed t-shirt that smelled a bit like sweat, but I couldn't care less. I stuffed the key in my pocket and snuck out. In the apartment complex courtyard were a few old, leafy pagoda trees. Under the shade of the trees, there were several sets of stone tables and chairs. It was a familiar gathering spot for the elderly men and women. At this moment, several old men were fanning themselves with cattail fans. Some were playing chess, some were watching, and some were just chatting. The targets appeared. I started pacing like a patrolling soldier, walking back and forth near them. The sun was scorching hot. In just a few minutes, I was drenched in sweat. The t-shirt stuck to my back. I deliberately slowed down, coughed a few times, or stared at some branch that didn't even exist, studying it for a long time, trying to attract their attention. Most of the old men were focused on the chess game on the table, or resting with their eyes closed, too busy to notice a weirdly behaving passerby like me. Just as I was about to be dried into a fish jerky and was about to give up, an old man fanning himself with a cattail fan, who had a Mediterranean hairstyle, wearing a white tank top, squinted his eyes and looked back and forth at me. He fumbled in his pocket, took out his reading glasses and put them on. After a careful look, he suddenly spoke up, pointing his cattail fan at me. Isn't that Xiaoling Zi? Ye Ling Feng? Right, it's you, kid. What are you loitering around here for? You reek of sweat. Stand a bit further away. Don't suffocate me. Xiaoling Zi. He knows me. My eyes lit up instantly as if I'd seen my savior. I immediately scurried over, ignoring his disgust. I squatted right next to the stone bench he was sitting on, looking up with a face flushed from the sun and a fawning smile. Uncle, your eyes are so sharp. It's me, Ye Lingfeng. I quickly seized the opportunity, lowered my voice and asked mysteriously, Uncle, can I ask you something? The girl in room 402, Luo Xinran. Do you know her? Shoo, the Mediterranean old man said with disgust, using his cattail fan to wave me away. You reek of sweat. What's wrong? Did you two have a fight? Did that girl Xinran kick you out? No wonder you're loitering around here. Nowhere to go, right? You two. The amount of information was huge. My heart bloomed with joy, but I tried to contain it and continued to seriously dig for information. I immediately transformed into a melancholic young man and said, Sigh, don't mention it. I'm not. Sigh. I had a small accident. My head's a bit fuzzy. I can't remember many things clearly. I only remember Xinran is very beautiful and kind, but she keeps insisting we're just normal friends. Uncle, please tell me the truth. What was our relationship really like before? I looked at him with expectant eyes, trying to make myself look both pitiful and sincere. The old man looked me up and down suspiciously. Did you really get hit so hard you became stupid? Aren't you her boyfriend? You freeload at her place every single day. How can you fake that? The huge rock in my heart finally fell. As expected. I knew it. My damn excellent instincts have never been wrong. Here's the witness. This is irrefutable proof. One more piece of evidence. The corners of my mouth couldn't help but curve up wildly, revealing an extremely silly and cheap-looking smile. But my joy lasted less than 2 seconds. A bigger question flooded my mind. Then why did she say she didn't know me? The old man pouted, picked up his enamel cup, and took a sip of tea. How would I know that? You kids and your little spats? Maybe you did something to make her angry. I scratched my head and decided to change my line of attack. Uncle, one more thing. Is there always an old scoundrel, a sloppy, disheveled old man, who comes to bother Xinran? He says he's her father. Mentioning this, the old man's expression darkened a bit. He sighed. Sigh. That's Xinran's father. That old man is no good. That poor girl, Xinran, has had a tough life. I heard her mother passed away early. She worked hard to get into university, and her job isn't bad either. She just moved here not long ago. She hadn't even had 2 years of peace before that father of hers showed up at her door. He's an alcoholic and a gambler. He comes by to cause trouble every other day, wailing and demanding money. Everyone in the neighborhood knows. Poor Xinran, such a good girl. With every word the old man spoke, it felt like a hand was squeezing my heart, a sharp pain. As the old man spoke, he glanced at me with disgust. All in all, that girl Xinran doesn't have it easy. Having a father like that isn't enough. She also has to support someone like you. Hey. He seemed to be choosing his words carefully. I subconsciously continued for him, support a handsome and dashing guy like me, a heroic and imposing boyfriend. The old man rolled his eyes without any courtesy. Nonsense. A freeloader. Haven't you always been here? Your work is on again, off again. I've never seen you bring home much money. Isn't it that girl Xinran who's supporting both of you men? Freeloader. I was speechless. Besides the shock, a strange sense of pride and admiration welled up inside me. I rubbed my chin, my eyes sparkling, and mumbled to myself, as expected of my future wife. She's so capable. To be able to support 2 freeloaders, me and her father. So amazing. The old man was stunned by my utterly shameless words. He even forgot to fan himself with the cattail fan in his hand. He looked at me as if he were looking at a rare weirdo. Just as he was about to open his mouth to scorn me again, a sound suddenly echoed from upstairs. The extremely ear-piercing roar of a shrew. You damn old man. Where the hell have you been lazing around now? Where are the clothes I told you to wash? Did you sneak off to watch people play chess again? Get your butt back here. This voice was like a thunderclap on a clear day, immensely powerful. Almost as a conditioned reflex, I zipped under the table, next to the stone bench the old man had just been sitting on. The movement was fluid, agile. It was as if I'd practiced it 1,000 times. The old man, who had just lost his throne, was speechless. He watched me expertly take over, the best spot for cooling off and watching chess. The corner of his mouth twitched, at a loss for words. He finally managed to squeeze out a sentence. This kid knows how to pick a spot. But troubles never come singly. Almost at the same time, from the entrance of the complex echoed the voice I was most afraid to hear right now, a female voice both hurried and angry, coming closer from a distance. Ye Lingfeng, where did you run off to? Didn't I tell you to stay home? Ye Lingfeng, where are you? It's Luo Xinran. Why is she back so early? I'm done for. I was so scared I trembled, subconsciously wanting to shrink deeper under the table. Luo Xinran had clearly searched around. Her sharp gaze swept over the shadows, and with one glance, she spotted my long legs that had nowhere to hide under the stone table and the back of my neck that I was trying and failing to conceal. She stormed over aggressively, flipped the tablecloth, then bent down and grabbed my ear, pulling me out from under the table. Ouch, 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 it hurts. Xinran, be gentle. My ear's about to fall off. I immediately grimaced and begged for mercy, my posture as pathetic as could be. What did I tell you? I told you not to run around. The wound on your head hasn't even healed yet. Do you just let my words go in one ear and out the other? Her cheeks were flushed with anger, but her eyes were a little moist. She was clearly worried sick. I was wrong. I was really wrong. I was just too bored, came down for some fresh air. I won't do it again. I absolutely won't do it again. While covering my ear, I bowed and nodded, admitting my fault. My eyes darted towards the Mediterranean old man who was watching the show, desperately signaling for help. The old man looked at my pathetic, henpecked state and finally couldn't hold it in, letting out a chuckle. Fanning his cattail fan, he gloated over my misery. Hehe. Who would have thought, Xiaoling Zi, that you'd have a day like this? Afraid of your wife, are you? The words had barely left his mouth when another angry roar echoed from upstairs. You damn old man, what are you laughing at? Get your butt back up here. Are you itching for a beating? The old man's smile instantly froze on his face. The next second, a sturdy old woman burst out from the building entrance, precisely grabbed the Mediterranean old man's ear and dragged him back while scolding him. All you do is gossip. The clothes soaking in the basin are about to stink. Get back and wash them for me. Hey, my dear wife, be gentle, be gentle. Let me save some face. The old man was also immediately terrified, being dragged away by the old woman with his head tilted. In the moment before the door closed, I, getting my ear pinched, and the old man, getting his ear pinched, looked at each other from a distance. That look was full of shared misery, deep sympathy, and profound worry about our own bleak futures. Then, we were each dragged away in different directions by our respective guardians. I'm done for. This time, I'm really done for. I rubbed my burning earlobe, screaming internally. But strangely, the sweet feeling that arose from confirming she was, my girlfriend, was simply irrepressible. Heh. Luo Xinran is my girlfriend. She's my girlfriend. Although I had 99.99% confirmed my relationship with Luo Xinran, she would never admit it, deliberately kept her distance from me. During meals, she'd eat quickly and leave the table. When watching TV, she'd sit on a small stool, as far away from me as possible. When talking to me, her eyes would always dart away, unwilling to look me in the eye for long, but I could feel her care. She would silently push my favorite dishes in front of me. At night, she would wake up several times to gently check if I had a fever or was uncomfortable. She would help me sort the medicine prescribed by the hospital and watch me take it all. Feeling her clear, yet unacknowledged concern for me, I couldn't help but feel troubled. I went online to post for help. What should I do if my wife won't acknowledge me? As a result, in less than 2 minutes, the comment section was either telling me to kneel on a durian, which, though painful, said to be very effective, or it was filled with sarcastic voices shouting things like, ooh, look at you, the only one with a wife. Helpless. I had to think of a solution myself. But while recovering at home these past few days, I found a notebook that I suspected was mine. Yeah, this handwriting looks like chicken scratch. Could a handsome guy like me really write this? I didn't believe it, so I wrote a few words next to it. All right then, I believe it now. I held the notebook with some disdain and quickly scanned the painfully ugly words inside. Ring, roses, wallflowers, balloons, old scoundrel. What is all this? I knew all those words, but I couldn't remember why I wrote them, especially old scoundrel. Just thinking of him made me unreasonably angry. I don't know why I would write his name in the notebook. I used my wise brain to think for half a day, and then, unsurprisingly, I discovered that my brain had indeed been hit. It was no longer wise. Damn it. I'd better not remember which bastard hit me, causing my wife not to recognize me. Although I didn't know what the notebook was for, I felt deep down that it was very important. I secretly stuffed it into my pocket and immediately drew up a meticulous operation, beloved wife plan. Of course, kneeling on a durian was out of the question, because my brain told me that Shinran doesn't like the smell of durian. A keyboard, however, might be worth a try. In the morning, I heard Luo Xinran's alarm go off. She rustled awake and I immediately shot up, rushing into the small kitchen before her. I declared that I would make breakfast. Wearing an apron with a cartoon cat on it, she sleepily leaned against the kitchen doorway and said with a look of doubt and disbelief, "Since when do you know how to cook? Don't you dare burn down the kitchen." She realized she had almost let something slip and quickly changed the subject, pushing me into the kitchen. "Who are you looking down on?" I tried to remember, but my memory of cooking was a complete blank. I decided to start with the simplest dish, a fried egg. The result was oil splattering everywhere, eggshells falling into the bowl, and in my fumbling, I knocked over the salt shaker. In the end, the fried egg I served was burnt black as charcoal on one side and still runny on the other. She looked at that horrifying creation, then at the grease stains on my face and my expectant gaze, and finally couldn't help but let out a chuckle. It was a genuinely relaxed smile, with a hint of helplessness. "How many times has it been? You usually just help me in the kitchen. Just let me do it." She naturally took the spatula, pushed me out of the kitchen, and go sit outside. "Don't cause any more trouble." I watched her skilled, busy back, listening to the pleasant sizzling sound from the pan. The emptiness in my heart seemed to be filling up little by little. The scene was so familiar, even though when she later placed the perfect fried egg in front of me, she deliberately put on a serious face. I could still see the unconcealable smile in the corners of her eyes. Sigh. Plan step 1. Make breakfast for wife. Failure. For several nights at Luo Xinran's place, I could hardly get a full night's sleep. The sofa was very soft, and the blanket she prepared for me carried the scent of sunshine and her fragrance. It was extremely comfortable, but I kept tossing and turning like a fish in a frying pan. I always felt an emptiness inside, a piece of my heart missing. I was restless and uneasy, finding it hard to fall asleep. Another late night, I stared at the ceiling. After the nth failed attempt to sleep, a very clear thought emerged. I must have held her to sleep before. Only a tight embrace like that could fill this emptiness and this bone-deep anxiety. Once this thought arose, it grew like a rampant vine, entangling me and making me even more agitated. Finally, after another frustrating round of tossing and turning, I resignedly sat up, hugged my pillow and blanket, and like someone planting a mine, I tiptoed to her bedroom door. My heart was beating a little fast, like a little thief about to do something bad. It's fine. It's fine. This is my wife. My own wife. I'm not a thief. Not a thief. I took a deep breath, forcibly suppressing my thief's guilty conscience, and carefully reached for the doorknob, ready to execute my plan to crash in her bed. Just as my fingertips were about to touch the cold metal, a suppressed voice faintly came from inside. It was Shin-ran. She was on the phone. Her voice was very low, carrying a tremor and an anger that I had never heard before. Why are you calling again? I already sent you this month's living expenses. She paused for a moment, seemingly listening to the person on the other end. Her breathing became rapid. So you went gambling again? How many times have I told you, don't call me your daughter anymore? I don't have a father like you. My heart suddenly clenched. It was that old scoundrel. The person on the other end seemed to be yelling something again. Shinran's voice suddenly rose a little, then was immediately suppressed again, turning into a pained growl. Enough! Isn't the money I give you enough? Have you ever raised me for a single day? When my mother was sick, where were you? When I couldn't pay my tuition? Where are you, Dad? How dare you still have the nerve, Dad, to keep coming to me for money time and time again? Besides contributing a little to my birth, what else have you ever done? Her questioning was like the whimper of a small, wounded animal filled with sorrow and resentment, but also completely helpless. She even had to lower her voice, afraid I would hear her from the next room. My hand on the doorknob dropped to my side. My heart ached. It hurt so much I could barely breathe. A brief silence fell inside the room. I could only hear her intermittent suppressed gasps. Then the phone seemed to be hung up abruptly. Immediately after, there was an extremely faint sound, a sob that could no longer be held back. Like a needle, it pierced my eardrums with precision, embedding itself deep in the softest part of my heart. But that cry only lasted a few seconds, really, just a few seconds, before it abruptly stopped, replaced by a harsh sniffle and a sound as if she were using the back of her hand to wipe away her tears forcefully, creating a soft, rustling sound. At that very moment, my head suddenly throbbed with pain. A few blurry images scrambled to rush into my mind. It was still this house, in the kitchen. Her back was to me as she stir-fried vegetables, her shoulders trembling slightly. She quickly raised a hand to wipe her eyes. Then she took a deep breath, and when she turned around, her face wore the most natural smile, even looking a little cheerful. She brought out the dish and called to me, "What are you spacing out for? Let's eat. I made your favorite sweet and sour pork ribs today." And another time, after she finished a phone call, the rims of her eyes were red. Seeing my worried gaze, she immediately smiled and waved her hand saying, "It's nothing, just got some dust in my eye. Quick, come watch this funny video." She's always like this, giving herself only 2 seconds to break down, then quickly putting on a strong mask, hiding all the bad and weak things tightly behind her back, leaving only warmth and smiles for the person she cares about. I vaguely remembered a little. It wasn't a specific event, but that feeling. She had a habit of hiding her pain, only showing me her best side. The pain in my heart spread, carrying with it endless bitterness and heartache. I pulled my hand back. Silently, I leaned against the side of her door. "Shinran is very strong. Don't go in." This voice appeared in my head naturally. "Right now, she definitely doesn't want you to see. Her eyes swollen and red from crying and her vulnerable state. Your intrusion will only make her feel more awkward, more tired." In the end, I didn't open that door, but I didn't leave either. I sat down right where I was, leaning against the doorframe, wrapping the blanket around myself like a loyal and foolish watchdog. I stood guard at her door. At least this way, when she needs me, I'll know immediately. The cold from the floor seeped through the thin blanket. It was very uncomfortable. But hearing that it was completely quiet inside the door, and even gradually hearing her breathing, which she was trying to make steady, my heart felt strangely at peace. Exhaustion and drowsiness came over me like a storm. Just like that, I leaned against the door and drowsily fell asleep. The next morning, I was awakened by the sound of the door opening. The door opened inwards. I lost my support and almost tumbled inside. Luo Shinran was clearly startled by the huge obstacle at the door, letting out a small yelp. When she saw clearly that it was me, wrapped in a blanket and sitting on the floor with a sleepy look, she was stunned. "Ye Lingfeng?" She squatted down, looking at me in amazement. "Why are you sleeping here?" She looked no different than usual except for her slightly swollen red eyes, which were almost unnoticeable if you didn't look closely. But she hid it very well. Her voice only held surprise and suspicion. "Ye Lingfeng, don't expose her." This sentence popped into my head. I rubbed my forehead where it hurt from the bump, swallowing all the words that were about to spill from my lips. About the argument I heard last night, her crying, my heartache, I swallowed it all back down. So I took the opportunity to hug her legs, burying my face in her soft pajamas, and started to act spoiled and whiny. My voice carried the hoarseness and self-pity of someone who had just woken up. Shinran, I'm scared to sleep alone. It's so dark. There are strange noises coming from the sofa. I don't dare to sleep alone. Her body stiffened for a moment, and she tried to pull me off. What nonsense are you talking about? There aren't any noises. Get up quickly, the floor is cold. I hugged her even tighter and looked up, giving her what I thought was my most pitiful look, and started hinting, pushing my luck. There are definitely no strange noises in your room. Besides, your bed is so big. Can you spare me a tiny bit of space? Just a little bit. I promise to be good. Her face immediately flushed red, and her tone hardened, carrying a barely perceptible hint of panic. Ye Lingfeng, stop talking nonsense. We already agreed we're just normal friends. How could we? How could we sleep together? Get up now. I immediately covered my ears and started to play the victim. I'm not listening. Not listening. I can't hear anything you're saying. Normal friends can also lend half a bed to shelter a homeless child. Seeing her angry yet helpless expression, I suddenly let go, scrambled up, ran to the kitchen and opened the fridge. Grabbing 2 cold eggs and coming back, I silently pushed them into her hands. Here for you. My voice became a bit more serious, my gaze darting towards her slightly swollen eyes. Pay some attention to it, or you won't look good at work. She froze, looking down at the eggs in her hand, then suddenly raised her head to look at me, a flash of panic and the embarrassment of being seen through in her eyes. While she was dazed, I was like an eel, and with a whoosh, I slipped through the crack of the door into her room, my target clearly the bed, that looked incredibly soft and comfortable. I hugged the blanket that still held her warmth and scent, and rolled to the very inside corner. Whatever, I'm so sleepy. I didn't get any sleep last night. The floor made my back hurt. I'm going to sleep now. Good night. I buried my head in the pillow, intentionally mumbling loudly, but in reality, my heart was pounding. From behind came her exasperated voice. Ye Lingfeng, get down for me. It's just morning. What are you sleeping for? Get up. She came over and pushed me a few times, but I really hadn't slept all night. Plus my emotions had been all over the place. So now, the moment I touched this truly comfortable bed, hugging the blanket filled with her scent, an intense sleepiness hit me like an avalanche. Her pushes became like a gentle scratch. My consciousness quickly faded. I mumbled a few incomprehensible words, and just like that, clutching the blanket, I fell into a deep sleep. In a daze, I felt that she, who had been a bit sulky, seemed to have fallen silent. After standing for a while, I felt the mattress next to me dip slightly, then a thicker blanket was gently placed over me, and the corners were carefully tucked in. A slightly cold and soft hand, very lightly, very gently touched my hair, carrying endless attachment and inner conflict. Finally, I seemed to hear a nearly inaudible sigh, full of helplessness and choked emotion. It rang in my ear. Ye Lingfeng, can you please not be so good to me? This sentence was like a feather brushing against my heart, bringing a dull, throbbing pain. I wanted to open my eyes and hug her, to tell her that I just wanted to be good to her. Ye Lingfeng just wants to be good to Luo Xinran. There's no reason, but my heavy eyelids and the drowsiness engulfed me like a tide. In the end, it only turned into a vague whisper as I completely sank into a deep sleep. In my dream, I finally hugged the source of warmth I had longed for, and no longer felt empty. Although the previous plan to win my wife back failed once, I have to finish the path I've chosen, even if I have to crawl. Not to mention, when facing my future wife, even if I have to kneel, I have to make her accept me. So the next day, when Luo Xinran was getting ready for work, I immediately followed her to the door like a tail. I'll take you. No need, the bus is very convenient for me. No way. I'm about to suffocate to death staying at home. I want to go. I must go. I want to go. I want to go. She glared at me. In the end, she couldn't outstubborn me, and had to tacitly agree to let me follow. Heh. I've discovered this whining tactic of mine works every time. The bus was very crowded. I instinctively raised my arm, trying to use my body to create a little space for her, my arm loosely circling her to prevent others from bumping into her. She stood stiffly, her head bowed, her ears kept turning red. After getting off the bus and arriving downstairs at her company, she said hurriedly, "All right, you should go home now." But I looked at the sunlight on her face, where even the fine hairs were visible, and suddenly blurted out, "Xinran, you're so beautiful, more beautiful than flowers in the sun." She suddenly froze, her face instantly flushed, like a ripe tomato. She stomped her foot in a panic. "What nonsense are you spouting again? Go home now." After saying that, she turned and ran into the building. I'm an honest person. I never talk nonsense. I watched her flustered back, rubbing my head which was still throbbing with a dull ache, yet my heart felt sweet. Although I don't remember the past, praising her is my instinct. Plan to win back my wife. Step 2. One afternoon, many days after waking up at Shinran's house, sunlight streamed through the gap in the curtains, shining on my face. Her previous words, "Don't be so good to me," were like a feather that occasionally scratched at my heart, both sweet and sour. Before leaving the house, Luo Xinran told me, "Just stay at home and be good. Take your medicine on time. Don't run around. Your wound hasn't fully healed yet." Her voice tried to sound calm, but the concern in her eyes couldn't be hidden. I nodded like a chicken pecking at grain and smiled very obediently. Got it. Got it. I absolutely won't run around. I'll wait for you to come back. The moment the door closed, the obedient look on my face instantly vanished. A thought I had been pondering uncontrollably popped up. Where's my family? From the time I had the car accident and lost my memory until now, besides Luo Qinran, no one claiming to be my family has appeared. My phone is broken, the past is a blank slate. Aren't they looking for me, or do they simply not know or not care? This feeling of being forgotten by the whole world is not pleasant at all. I have to find out the truth. And so, an hour later, I once again skillfully sneaked out of the house. As soon as I got downstairs, I ran into the familiar Mediterranean bald uncle. He was sneaking around with somewhat stiff movements, trying to sneak out of the complex gate, most likely going to watch people play chess again. The two of us met face to face and froze at the same time, then immediately exchanged a knowing, crafty, "I know what you're up to" smile. "Uncle, going for a stroll?" I sidled up to him and even kindly offered him my arm, helping him down the last few steps more steadily and quickly. This kid is pretty sharp. The old man grunted, but didn't refuse. "Sneaking out again? Aren't you afraid your girl will come back and twist your ear?" Shh, keep it down." I looked around guiltily and lowered my voice. "Uncle, let me ask you something serious. Do you know where my home is? I mean, where I lived before I lost my memory." The old man looked at me as if I were an idiot. This old man has had a clean record his whole life, no criminal history. And I'm not a census investigator. How would I know where you live? All right then. It was a useless question. Saying goodbye to the uncle who was eager to watch chess, I stood at the gate of the apartment complex feeling lost. Where should I go? I took a deep breath, trying to ignore the dull ache that was starting in my head again, trying to relax and let my feet choose a direction based on instinct. Turn left, turn right, go straight. Going straight feels somewhat right. I walked aimlessly, passing through a noisy market, passing through a quiet, tree-lined street. The headache would strike intermittently, like a needle prick. A few extremely blurry fragments of street scenes flashed by, guiding me around each turn. I don't know how long I walked, but when I stopped and looked up, I was stunned myself. Before me was a high-end residential complex that looked very expensive. The security was strict, the landscaping was meticulously maintained, and the building looked very grand. An indescribable sense of familiarity and a feeling of rejection rose in my heart at the same time. Did I really live in a place like this? Then why am I sticking around, in Sinran's cozy but obviously ordinary, and even somewhat cramped apartment? The moment the question arose, a voice from the bottom of my heart gave me the answer, because she is there. Relying on that vague sense of familiarity and my body's residual memory, I actually managed to find my way to the front door of a building on the side of the complex. Facing the high-tech fingerprint lock, as if possessed, I raised my finger and pressed it. A soft beep, the door opened. Along with it, a feeling of disgust grew stronger in my heart. I took the elevator upstairs and stopped in front of a heavy security door. Once again, I tried placing my finger on the fingerprint recognition area. Verification successful. The lock clicked and opened. I pushed the door open. A blast of cold air, carrying the scent of expensive aromatherapy, hit my face. The decor was extremely minimalist and luxurious, but there wasn't a trace of life. It was like a model home. In the living room, a woman in a silk nightgown, well-maintained, with delicate makeup, was holding an antique porcelain cup, elegantly sipping tea. Seeing me enter, she only slightly raised her eyes, and her eyebrows immediately furrowed. She put down her teacup, her voice as cold as the marble floor. So you still know the way back. If you came here to invite me to that wedding of yours." When she said the word wedding, the contempt in her voice almost froze. "Then I think you should know your place. I won't be there. Neither will your father. And certainly not your sister. I advise you not to waste your breath." The word mother, along with a headache, slammed violently into my mind. She is my mother. But this conversation, wedding, my and Shinran's wedding, had we already reached the stage of discussing marriage? The huge amount of information left me unable to react for a moment, but hearing her contemptuous tone, a nameless flame of anger immediately replaced my shock and doubt. I blurted out, "Shinran is a very good person. You can come to the wedding if you want or don't. But please, mother, don't belittle the person I love like that." My mother reacted as if she had heard an extremely ridiculous joke. Her icy face finally cracked with a hint of emotion, but it was extreme sarcasm. "Yeah, Lingfeng, you're really becoming something, aren't you? You haven't learned anything else, but you haven't lost that sentimental and self-righteous streak one bit. You didn't inherit any of my good genes." She stood up and walked towards me step by step, her eyes as sharp as knives. "For me to accept this useless son of mine, to dare admit your existence in front of outsiders, do you know how much face I lose?" Every single word was like an ice pick, stabbing sharply into my ears, stabbing into my heart. She didn't just look down on Shinran, she also looked down on me. I was almost stunned. My mind was buzzing, completely blank. At this very moment, countless memory fragments frantically flooded my mind. My parents' eyes when they looked at my report card, both angry and disgusted, even carrying a look of revulsion. "Look at your sister, she's always top of her grade. And what about you? Dead last. You've brought complete shame to the I family name. Stop hanging out with those bad students. Birds of a feather flock together. Do you want to become a good-for-nothing like them? Studying design? What's so great about that? Just obediently follow our arrangements and work at the company." "Ye Lingfeng, why are you so stupid?" My head felt like it was splitting open. I clutched my head in pain. Subconsciously wanting to find a place to hide, my eyes even uncontrollably glanced towards the heavy, solid wood dining table in the living room. My mother saw me like this. She snorted coldly. The contempt in her voice grew even stronger. What now? Do you want to be like when you were a child again, hiding under the table whenever you're criticized? Ye Lingfeng, can't you make some progress, besides hiding and making us angry? What else can you do? Her voice was like a demonic whisper in my ear, making my head hurt even more intensely. It almost felt like it would explode just when I was about to break, almost suffocating. Ye Lingfeng? An anxious and angry voice suddenly sounded from the door. The next second, Luo Xinran rushed in like a gust of wind, pulling me behind her with one hand, shielding me with her small body. Between me and my mother, she raised her head, fearlessly facing my mother, whose expression was surprised and even colder. Her voice was clear and firm, even carrying a rare sharpness. Auntie, may I ask, in your eyes, what is considered outstanding? Is it completely following your commands, have one's life completely based on the mold you want, copied and pasted, becoming a soulless puppet who only knows how to obey? Do you know what he has sacrificed for his dream of being a designer? Do you know how many prestigious awards his design works have won? Do you know that his design philosophy is to allow more ordinary people who can't afford sky-high priced houses, to also have a warm, comfortable, and dignified home? Isn't this more valuable than just showing off wealth and status? In your eyes, there is only the reputation of the I family. You've never seen how brightly he himself shines. After she finished speaking, her chest heaved slightly with agitation, but she still stood straight. At that moment, she turned to my completely stunned mother, whose face was pale, and bowed deeply, bowed politely and said, "I'm sorry for the intrusion then." She grasped my hand tightly and without a word, pulled me, who was still, dazed from the headache and shock, turned and strode away. I stumbled as she pulled me along, out of that cold, magnificent house, into the elevator, down the stairs. The sunlight was blinding. I looked at her back as she walked ahead, so thin, but so strong, so determined to take me home. In that very moment, another deeply buried memory suddenly broke through the barrier, appearing clearly before my eyes. It was an evening during high school. The sky was gray. I held a final exam report card in my hand, ranked 50th in the whole school, a rank that was considered a disgrace in my parents' eyes. After being harshly scolded by them, I was kicked out of the house. Look at your sister. She's first place again. Why can't you be a little more competitive? The I family doesn't have a useless child like you. Get out. Don't come back until you've figured it out. I walked numbly on the street. Cars were passing by. I felt that life was incredibly boring and incredibly suffocating. All efforts were meaningless. I would never meet my parents' expectations. I watched the cars speeding by. A terrifying thought even crossed my mind. Maybe I should just walk into it and end it all. Ye Lingfeng, just die. Hey, Ye Lingfeng, just die. Just die. Just as my foot was about to step off the curb, the sound of scolding from a barbecue stall at the entrance of a nearby alley caught my attention. A greasy middle-aged man was pointing at a young girl and cursing at her harshly. "Wash them! Hurry up! So slow! So many skewers! When will you ever finish washing them? You're ruining my business." That girl was Luo Xinran. She kept her head down. Her expression wasn't clear. She just scrubbed the skewers in her hand with more force, over and over again, in the basin of greasy water, mechanically and persistently repeating the actions of rinsing, changing water, and scrubbing, as if possessed. I squatted down on the curb, some distance away, blankly watching her. At that time, I thought, she's so resilient, repeating the task of washing so many greasy skewers every day. How did she persevere? I just repeated doing endless sets of practice exams every day, and I already felt like I was suffocating. I just kept watching. I don't know for how long, until it was completely dark and the streetlights came on. She finally switched shifts with another girl and took a few crumpled bills from the boss. The money was very little, but she counted it carefully and tucked it into her pocket. A smile appeared on her face, extremely tired, yet incredibly radiant, like a small lamp suddenly lighting up in the dark night. She gathered her things and walked past me. Suddenly, she unexpectedly reached out and yanked me to the side. Almost at the same time, a motorcycle lost control on the slippery road. It skidded, roaring past, right where I had been squatting, and crashed hard into the roadside railing, making a piercing sound. I was scared stiff and fell to the ground. My heart was pounding. She let go of her hand, looked at my still frightened self, her brows furrowed slightly, but her tone was a bit fierce. "Are you okay? Squatting on the side of the road at night is very dangerous, don't you know that?" I didn't say anything, just stared at her blankly. The streetlight outlined her cheekbones, which were dotted with sweat and fatigue. She was clearly a head shorter than me, but she possessed a vibrant strength. She saw I wasn't talking, pouted, and didn't meddle further. She turned and quickly left. Her back quickly disappeared into the night. At that moment, just like now, I blankly watched her back disappear in a flash. My heart was pounding in my chest, beating erratically. So it was that early on, when my life was at its darkest and most confusing. When I even wanted to give up, she had been like a defiant, dazzling beam of light that burst into my life in a way I had never seen before, to show me what perseverance was and even casually saved my life. Shh, Ye Lingfeng. Don't tell anyone. Don't say you might have already liked her back then. This is a secret. A secret that Shinran doesn't know. A sentence like that floated through my mind. My heart suddenly trembled. A wave of warmth spread throughout my body. I tightened my grip on Luo Shinran's hand and pulled her to a stop. She turned her head in surprise. The rims of her eyes were still a little red from her earlier agitation as she asked, Ye Ling Feng, what's wrong? Is your head hurting again? Ye Ling Feng, what's wrong with you? Didn't you sleep well? Ye Ling Feng, you started on your draft without finishing dinner. Ye Ling Feng, your design is amazing. Countless times when I thought of just dying, there was someone like that who used the same tone to say different things. I shook my head, shaking away the confusion in my mind. I looked into Shinran's worried eyes. My own eyes were burning, and I said with absolute certainty, Shinran, you are indeed my future wife. This was our destiny, decided years ago, right next to that barbecue stall. She casually pulled my falling life back up. Luo Shinran was completely stunned. Her pupils dilated slightly, followed by her familiar rebuttal. That's not it. We're just normal friends. All right? Normal friends. As if. I smiled and held her hand again. Hey, Ye Ling Feng, where are you taking me? Home? But then again, how did you know I was here? I checked the security camera. I get angry just thinking about it. I told you not to wander off. If you do it again next time, I'll take you back to the hospital. Next second, Shinran pretended to be angry and pinched my ear. Ow! Shinran. That hurts. It really hurts a little. Shut up. If it doesn't hurt, you won't remember? Oh my god, I feel like this plan of mine to win my wife back seems to be costing me my ears. In the evening, I curled up on the sofa, watching her fold clothes beside me. I couldn't help but ask, Shinran, was our relationship really good before? Her movements paused for a moment. She didn't look up. It was just normal. Then what did I do for a living before? You were a designer at a small company. Where did I live? You rented your own place? That old scoundrel at the door? Is he really your father? I asked the question I was most concerned about. Her face instantly paled. Her fingers folding the clothes tensed so hard her knuckles turned white. After a long silence, she said softly, Don't ask anymore, Ye Ling Feng. There's nothing good about the past. She picked up the folded clothes and quickly went to the bedroom, closing the door. She didn't come out for a long time. My heart felt heavy. That emptiness seemed to hide many things that caused her pain, and I seemed to be a part of that pain. A few days later, in the evening, that nightmarish voice sounded from downstairs again. Luo Shinran, get your ass down here, or I'll break down the door. Luo Shinran's face immediately turned pale. The book in her hand fell to the floor. She looked at the door in fear, her body trembling slightly. It was clearly a reflexive fear. Shinran, don't be afraid. This sentence popped into my head. A familiar feeling of disgust and anger took over me. A headache struck, but the desire to protect her was stronger. I stopped her as she was about to bolt the door and said in a low voice, Don't move. Let me go. I went to the door and yanked it open. That old scoundrel had his hand raised, ready to bang on the door. Seeing me, he broke into a nauseatingly fawning smile. Good son-in-law, you're home. That's great. Get lost. I cut him off. My voice was so cold it sounded foreign even to me. He was stunned for a moment, then started acting like a thug. Who the hell are you telling to get lost? I'm your father-in-law? I'm here to ask my daughter for money? It's perfectly normal. She doesn't have money for you. I blocked the doorway, looking at him with cold eyes. She doesn't have a father like you. And I'm not your son-in-law either. If you dare to bother her again, I don't mind helping you remember how to dial the police number. Perhaps it was the aura I was emitting at that moment, completely different from my usual foolish appearance. He was somewhat intimidated, but he still mumbled curses. Ungrateful brat, have you forgotten how respectful you used to be to me? Now you're pretending to have amnesia? Humph, the past is the past. I stared at him. The throbbing pain in my head grew stronger. A few vague images surfaced, me stuffing money into his hands time and time again, his greedy appearance as he counted the money, Shinran's appearance as she tearfully begged him not to come anymore. Now immediately lost. Don't make me say it a third time. Perhaps the ruthlessness in my eyes was too real. He resentfully spat on the ground, uttered a few harsh curses, and finally staggered away. I closed the door, leaned back against it, and let out a tired breath. Luo Shinran stood in the middle of the living room, looking at me with a face still full of shock. Her eyes were filled with complex emotions. There was gratitude, there was worry, and an even deeper unease. Did you remember something? She asked softly. I shook my head, walked over, and subconsciously reached out, gently pulling her trembling body into my arms. I patted her back comfortingly. No, I just felt I couldn't let him bully you. She stiffened for a moment, but didn't push me away. A long while later, I felt the front of my shirt become a little damp. She was crying silently. After that day, her attitude towards me softened a little, but the worry in her eyes deepened. She seemed to always be worried about me, about when I would regain my memory, while my desire to clarify everything grew stronger. One afternoon, I was trying to help her fix a drawer that was a bit loose in the bedroom. When I pulled the drawer out, I discovered behind the drawer's slider, something seemed to be tucked away, a bit hidden. I carefully pulled it out. It was a manila folder, as if possessed. I opened it. Inside was a thick stack of crumpled IOUs and collection notices. The borrower was mostly Luo Shinran's scumbag father, but the guarantor or emergency contact was my name, time and time again. The amounts ranged from a few thousand to tens of thousands. The last sheet was a collection notice for a large sum of 200,000. The date was right before my car accident. I vaguely remembered something. I immediately went to find my old phone, which had been hastily repaired. It took quite some effort, but I finally managed to turn it on. My hands started to tremble. I shakily opened the phone. The battery was very low. I looked at the messages. There were countless threatening collection messages, and the chat history with Shinran. The last few messages were her earnestly begging me not to get involved in her father's affairs anymore. And I had replied, Shinran, don't be afraid. There's a problem with the books this time. I can handle it. Wait for me to come back. I think I can resolve it for good this time. I'll be back soon. After that, I have something for you. You have to smile then, okay? The huge amount of information hit me like a tsunami, attacking my already chaotic brain. My head throbbed as if it would split. Vague memory fragments began to swirl and collide wildly, trying to piece themselves together. I was cornered on the street by creditors. They were forcing me to pay 200,000 for Luo's father. I saw a problem with the interest calculation and argued with them. During the scuffle, I was pushed hard into the open. The screech of tires, violent impact. The world went dark, and there were earlier things. We snuggled together on this small sofa watching movies. I kissed the top of her head. We argued because of her father. She tearfully said we should break up, saying she didn't want to drag me down. I held her tightly and didn't let go. I gave money to that old scoundrel time and again, in exchange for his temporary disappearance and peace. For Shinran, temporarily, I remembered a few things: the heavy debt, her father's shameless greed, the creditor's aggression. I also pretty much figured out why Shinran always said we had no relationship. She was feeling guilty. Feeling guilty that because of her connections, I was hurt. She wanted to use this opportunity to make me leave this mire. But how could Yiling Feng do that? Being with her is Yiling Feng's instinct, an instinct that has nothing to do with memory. Shinran is an idiot, isn't she? This sentence floated through my mind. It's okay. The idiot has a lover who can be thrown away. I collapsed onto the floor. The files scattered everywhere. The phone slipped from my powerless hand. Tears suddenly streamed down my face, not because of the pain, but because of this suffocatingly heavy truth and her heartbreakingly foolish decision. At the same time, I was also lucky to have remembered this important matter. I took the note out of my pocket. It seems the 3 words "old scoundrel" on it were referring to this. Shinran came home from work. When she opened the door, I had already composed myself and cooked a simple dinner. I shouted, "Idiot, come and eat, Yiling Feng. You've gotten bold, haven't you? Daring to call me an idiot?" Shinran pretended she was going to pinch my ear. I smiled, crinkling my eyes, and offered my head. Fear your wife. Only by fearing your wife can you get a good one. A few days later, the door was banged on violently again. This time, outside were several burly men with fierce faces. Luo Shinran's old scoundrel father was hiding behind them, peeking their heads out to look around. Yiling Feng, Luo Shinran, get out here! Are you going to pay the money or not? The scar-faced man in the lead roared. Although Shinran was surprised they found their way here, she still immediately pulled me behind her. These bastards, we haven't settled the score for the car accident yet, thinking they could just find a scapegoat and be done with it. Shinran had already called the police a long time ago. I, who had remembered the cause of the accident, was surprisingly calm at this moment. Shinran, it's okay. I know how to handle this. I opened the door, but only a small crack, using my body to shield Shinran inside. What's all the noise? I looked at them coldly. I remember the money issue very clearly. The way you calculate the interest on the 200,000 loan is incorrect. It has exceeded the legal limit and is considered illegal loan sharking. Furthermore, on the original loan agreement, it's hard to say if this old man's signature is even real. The scar-faced man was stunned for a moment, clearly not expecting me to calmly bring up such legal details. I continued to apply pressure. I have consulted a lawyer and have kept all the evidence. If you want to go through legal proceedings, I'll be happy to oblige. Of course, if you want to get physical right now. I shook the phone in my hand. The screen showed the 110 dial interface. I don't mind inviting the police to come talk about violent debt collection and loan sharking. Those men glanced at each other, clearly a bit intimidated. They just wanted money. They didn't want to make a big scene. Not to mention the previous car accident I was in. Scarface glared fiercely, looking at Father Luo, who was hiding behind them. Speak. Damn it, this old man. You dare to lie to us? Didn't you say this kid had become an idiot? Father Luo cowered in fear. Finally, Scarface threw out one last sentence. Kid, you just wait. Then he led his men away, cursing as they went. Father Luo also wanted to slip away, but I grabbed him. I stared at him, my eyes holding not a shred of leniency. You listen up too. From today on, Shinran has nothing to do with you. She won't give you another penny. If I find out you've come looking for her again, however much trouble those people just gave you, they'll be even more ruthless than them. I mean what I say. A blood bond with a father, even if you break the bone, the tendon remains. This made him demand money from Shinran time and time again. Shinran had her reservations, but I was different. I only care about Shinran. Perhaps the determination in my eyes and my coldness completely suppressed him. He stammered, not daring to utter a word, and scurried away. Closing the door, the world became quiet again. Luo Shinran stood there, stunned, but a different light flickered in her eyes. You remember now? Her lips trembled, but she couldn't make a sound, only looking at me with tear-filled eyes. I honestly shook my head. No. I just remembered a little bit, but it was just enough. Shinran's eyes immediately turned red, her voice frighteningly hoarse. I'm sorry. Yiling Feng, sorry. I caused you to get hurt. I'm sorry. It would have been better if it weren't for me. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. She repeated her apology over and over, covering her face with her hands, sobbing uncontrollably. I held her tightly, pulling her trembling, crying body into my arms. Shinran, you're such a fool. Don't apologize. To me, you never have to say you're sorry. She really is a fool, underestimating her place in my heart. But it's okay. A fool's lover doesn't mind. Day by day, the relationship between Shinran and I became more and more delicate. I was almost 100% certain she was my girlfriend. We were extremely close and may have even reached the point of discussing marriage. From what my mother and the old uncle downstairs said, the pieces were slowly coming together. And what about her? Although I was upfront with her last time about remembering part of what happened, she always seemed to avoid me a little. It seemed my car accident had left a huge shadow on her. Every time I tried to get close or probe with words, she would put up her soft thorns. Once, twice, 3 times, N times. That night, once again, faced with her evasive eyes and firm denials, I failed. My heart sank and there was a hint of unspoken resentment and frustration. Oh my God, why is my beloved wife mission plan so difficult? I trudged downstairs dejectedly, like an eggplant withered by frost. My head started to throb again. It was because of her, and also because of this tangled situation. The bald uncle under the tree was intently watching others play chess, his brow furrowed as if facing a world-class chess match. I squatted next to him, letting out a long sigh, and mumbled as if chanting a sutra. What should I do if my girlfriend won't acknowledge me? Uncle, you're full of experience. Give me some advice. The uncle was at a critical point in the game when I interrupted him. Extremely impatient, he used the fan in his hand to push me aside, his eyes never leaving the chessboard. Go on, go, don't block the light. So annoying. What can a husband and wife talk about? You fight at the head of the bed, you make up at the foot of the bed, you're about to get married, what's there to fuss about? Let me watch the game in peace. You're about to get married. The word marriage, like a bolt of lightning, struck me precisely for the second time. Previously, when I heard it from my mother, I was mostly surprised and indignant on her behalf. But this time, from an outsider, hearing it from the uncle who knew part of the story, the feeling was completely different. A feeling of bitterness and longing, indescribably huge, immediately took over my heart. We were about to get married. We really were about to get married. A splitting headache hit me, more intense than any time before. Countless hazy memory fragments crashed wildly in my mind. The guilt when I secretly measured her finger size, the seriousness when I ran all over the city's jewelry stores to pick a ring, the silly look on my face as I practiced the proposal in front of the mirror, the anticipation of imagining her happy smile when she wore the ring. The pain made me groan and clutch my head. No wonder the note had the word ring on it. It wasn't marriage, but that I was preparing to propose. A strong, irresistible instinct urged me on. I suddenly stood up and stumbled towards the building, almost running upstairs by muscle memory. I opened the door with a trembling hand. After getting inside, my target was clear. I went straight to the dining table in the living room. Yes, the table. My mother used to mock me, saying that as a child, I would hide under the table whenever I was scolded. And at Luo Shinran's place, this table was my safe zone. I almost collapsed to the floor, using both hands and feet to crawl under the table. A familiar sense of security enveloped me, but what was more important right now was that my fingers were frantically searching underneath the table. Where is it? I'm sure I hid it here. An absolutely safe place that she would never normally touch, but that I could easily get to. My fingertips suddenly touched a small, cold object, a small, hard box secured with clear tape. My heart suddenly stopped beating for a moment. Trembling, I carefully removed it. Then I opened it. A diamond ring, under the dim light, still reflected a small but brilliant light. The design was simple yet elegant. The main diamond wasn't large, but it was perfectly cut and flanked by a circle of smaller diamonds, like stars surrounding the bright moon. How long had I saved? How many stores had I visited, with what a nervous and excited mood, to finally choose this one? Buzz, buzz, buzz. It was as if a beehive had exploded in my head. More images flooded back, me holding her, imagining our future home. When she looked at wedding dress magazines, the sparkling light in her eyes but hidden away by worries about her father. Just as I clutched the warm ring, my heart pounding like a drum, almost unable to breathe, a familiar voice sounded from downstairs. It was Shinran greeting a neighbor. Then came the sound of a key in the lock. Click! The door opened. The living room light turned on. Shinran walked in, looking tired. She habitually bent down to change her shoes. The moment she stood up straight, I suddenly crawled out from under the table. Because I was in such a hurry, my forehead even hit the edge of the table, but I didn't have time to feel the pain. I turned to face her, under her completely shocked and bewildered gaze, which even held a hint of fear. Without hesitation, I dropped with a thud, down on one knee. I raised the ring clutched in my palm, which was almost soaked with sweat. Hey, I told you so. No wonder at the hospital last time, kneeling down felt so natural. There was a reason for it after all. Shinran was completely frozen. The bag in her hand fell to the floor with a thud. Her eyes widened, looking at me kneeling before her, looking at that ring. Her lips parted, but she couldn't make a sound. Only her chest heaved violently. My heart trembled. The moment I opened my mouth, my voice was already hoarse, carrying an uncontrollable sob. The emotions that had been suppressed for so long, the panic of losing my memory, the resentment of being pushed away by her, the excitement of finding the ring, along with a fierce love, almost drowned me. Everything turned into hot tears that suddenly streamed down. I don't know what to say. I can't remember many things. I cried as I spoke, my words jumbled, Tears blurred my vision, making it almost impossible to see her face clearly. God knows, on such an important proposal occasion, I couldn't hold back my tears. But I remember this. I hid it. I hid it very well. Hid it. Waiting until I wanted to live with you for the rest of my life to take it out. I tried hard to wipe away my tears, trying to see her clearly, my voice breaking with sobs. I think I even bought flowers. I prepared lots and lots of flowers. I prepared for a long time, but now I can't remember anymore. I'm sorry. I'm so stupid. But Shinran, I took a deep breath, using all my strength to make my voice as clear as possible. I know what you're afraid of. I know what you're worried about. You're afraid your family will drag me down. You're afraid you'll regret it later. So, you'd rather push me away, lie to me, and lie to yourself, saying we're just normal friends. Shinran's tears had been falling silently for a while. She looked at me, shook her head, her lips trembling, wanting to say something, but my words cut her off. It's not like that. I cried while trying to give her a smile, an extremely ugly, tear-stained smile. Yeah. Whether we're normal friends or not, this place, I pointed to my beating, frantic heart, this place knows best. It hurts for you. It beats for you. It tells me, it's you. It can only be you. I don't know how the person I was before loved you, but the person I am now just wants to use everything I can think of to love you. Marry me, okay, Ex-In-Ran? My hand holding the ring trembled slightly with nervousness and emotion, as if I were holding my entire life and future. I promise I'll make up for the forgotten words later. The sweet words of forgotten, I'll make them all up to you. I'll make it up to you so much more than anyone else. Don't push me away. I'm begging you. My tears broke again. I was almost pleading. Without you, nowhere is home. My Shinran, with you, there is a home. Luo Shinran was already crying silently. She looked at me, at the ring sparkling under the light, at me crying like a child, with a pathetic but incredibly sincere face. The shell she had always kept up to protect herself and also to protect me, at this moment, was completely shattered by this most primitive, most clumsy, but also most passionate proposal. She finally broke down and cried out loud, apologizing continuously, her voice broken. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have lied to you. I shouldn't have said we had no relationship. I was just too scared. I was afraid you'd be ruined by my dad. I was afraid everyone would abandon you because of me. I was afraid you would hate me later. I won't. Never, ever. I hurriedly cut her off, my gaze incredibly firm. None of that matters. Only you are the most important. Because you are Shinran. Because my Shinran is a fool. Even now, she still doesn't know her weight in Yiling Feng's heart. It's a weight accumulated from many years ago, a weight that has always been buried deep in my heart. So, my dear Miss Luo Shinran, will you agree to officially and permanently give me a VIP ticket to your life? The term is a lifetime. Hearing my cheesy confession, Shinran laughed through her tears. She cried and finally, trembling, slowly, extended her left hand to me. In that moment, a feeling of happiness and bitterness, so immense it made me dizzy, washed over me at the same time. As carefully as if I were holding a priceless treasure, I took her slightly cold fingers and, trembling, placed the ring symbolizing a promise and a new beginning solemnly onto the base of her ring finger. The size was perfect. The sparkling diamond shone on her slender finger. I held her hand tightly, pressing it against my wildly beating chest. I looked up at her, my tears still falling, but I finally managed a genuine, radiant smile. Luo Shinran looked at the ring on her hand, then back at me, laughing and crying. Finally, she slowly sat down, bringing herself to my eye level, firmly clasped my hand back. A warm and quiet peace settled in the house, only the sound of our gradually steadying intertwined breaths and the reflection of tears in each other's eyes. Just then, there was a noise outside the door. The bald uncle was being pinched by the ear by his wife, being dragged upstairs. Apparently, he forgot to come home while watching chess again. The uncle was grimacing in pain. As he passed by my open door, he subconsciously glanced inside and happened to see me still kneeling on the ground, clutching Luo Shinran's hand, both of us with tears in our eyes. While the new ring on her hand was dazzling, the uncle froze for a moment. Then, ignoring his aching ear, he clicked his tongue twice, shook his head, his tone full of, I knew it, lamentation, and a little bit of gloating. Haha. From now on, this building will have another henpecked husband. As soon as he finished speaking, his wife pinched him even harder. You have the nerve to talk about others? Get home, now! The uncle yelped as he was dragged away. Shinran and I looked at each other, stunned at first, then we couldn't help but laugh through our tears at the same time. I was still kneeling on the ground, holding her tightly, burying my face in her embrace, inhaling the reassuring scent on her, feeling that my long wandering heart had finally found its harbor. Memories may have been empty, but love never left. No matter what the road ahead holds, as long as we have each other, nothing can stop us.